Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about how you can optimize your Facebook ads data and analyze data correctly inside the ads manager from a creative metrics perspective, but also from a hard metric perspective. Which metrics do you need to take a look at, and which metrics do you need to actually prioritize in order to make the most informed decisions and make the best decision for your business? So, with that said, let's actually dive into it. So, inside the ads manager here, this is the column setup that I take a look at in order to optimize the data. And it starts with just the kind of budget, the attribution settings that we're using, reach, impressions, and it goes all the way into the creative metrics. And this is the kind of sequence that I take a look at in order to optimize. So the first things that you need to take a look at, and I take a look at, is all those business KPIs, kind of metrics that we are optimizing for. So it is the amount spent, the CPA, results, ROAS, and all of those are like those core hard metrics that we need to optimize the creative. I know there are like quite a few different metrics from a hard from a pure creative perspective, like cost per click, click-through rates, all those stuff. We do take them into account, but not so as a priority here. These like three or four key metrics are really going to be moving the needle, and this is what we really want to take a look at and optimize around. And then all the other creative metrics from frequency to click-through rate, cost per click, CPM, and across the video retention metrics all tell a different story about the creative. And it's not so that we need to stress about them or that we need to optimize very granularly on each one. Now, to kind of jump into more granular on each one of those, frequency is super important because it kind of tells us if Meta is actually bucketing us into the same audiences, and if the creative is not really engaging, Meta won't actually push it to new audiences. So basically, the frequency will be quite high. And then when moving into the next part of the funnel, basically when people are actually clicking off the ad, is going to be the unique outbound click-through rate, which basically measures how many people actually clicking through our ads. And it's actually a unique, so it's not just the kind of OCTR, it's just a unique outbound, which means the very specific amount of people that actually got into the website. Then we have cost per click, kind of measures how effective it is really, and how effective our hook is into driving this action into the website. And then from a kind of CPM perspective, obviously this can be quite dependent on the industry and a few other factors, but it's good to actually keep a kind of track of, because again, the higher CPM, something is not really hitting from a creative perspective again, and Meta doesn't really help us in getting our ad out there. And then the last three metrics that I take a look at specifically for video creatives and are very effective is thumbs up ratio. We basically it captures, it gauges the effectiveness of the hook. So the first like three to 4 seconds, and really it measures the how many how many people actually stop the scroll. And then we have hold rate, basically how effective we are in retaining attention post hook. And then the video average play time, we see on average how many people actually watching through the ad and how many seconds they're watching through the ad. So these are like all the kind of core metrics that I'm taking a look at inside the Ads Manager. Again, the core key metrics will be your amount spent, your volume, and your actual efficiency. So like cost per acquisition. But then all the other creative metrics tell the story on why or why did not actually work, how we can actually optimize. So let's actually dive into how we can optimize each of the creative metrics and just see what different bottlenecks may occur, how we can attack them basically. So in terms of like those metrics, we, we went through the kind of definition, and just to kind of dive a bit deeper on those most common bottlenecks. Usually when click-through rate is quite low, you need to rethink your kind of hook. We need to focus on like much stronger visuals and copy. Something is not really clicking, and people are actually not really interested in clicking through the website. So the kind of point of action here is to rethink your visuals, rethink your messaging from a hook perspective, because there's no throughput from a hook to call to action perspective here. And in terms of the click-through rate, when it's high, you need to double down on what's really working. You need to test and maximize the amount of variations that you test in the hook. And it's something really actually clicking here, something it really comes naturally to your kind of audiences, and they clicking through and they probably buy your product as well. When it comes to thumbs up ratio, it's quite actually simple. When thumbs up ratio is low, something is not engaging from a hook perspective again, but not so just from a messaging perspective, but also on those more granular details like the visuals, the audio, what is really going to be capturing attention of our ideal customers there. And the common problem that I see is that people go all the way to the other spectrum. So they go into that clickbaity hooks, which they might get attention, but they're not the right kind of attention, and they won't actually convert. We are optimizing for profit and for actually driving conversion volume. So the key thing here is that we still need to be relevant to our core customer here. And what to do when thumbs up ratio is quite high. We actually have some momentum here. You need to ensure that your storytelling after the hook is actually convincing enough, and we can actually make the most out of the high thumbs up that we have produced. Now into some industry benchmarks that you can actually act on. Obviously, that's like very rough estimates, but this is what I'm seeing across the board. When it comes to Facebook, typically click-through rate is around 1 to 1.5%. When you have those top performers, and outliers is typically around 2% and plus. And then ROAS, again, highly depending on your product industry, but as a kind of placeholder here, you can shoot for like 2 to 4x. Thumbs up, again, very dependent on your industry, but anything around 20 to 40% around this range are quite good. In terms of like TikTok specifically, in general, metrics are like quite lower, just given it's a much more fast-paced platform. So you're looking at like thumbs up around to 15 to 20%, click rates around 1%, and a ROAS is typically around 2 to 3x. And again, the same kind of action points apply here in terms of when we have low click-through rate, low thumbs up, and or even like a low ROAS. The difference with TikTok, just because it's a much more native platform, we need to ensure we have TikTok first content and UGC that basically just mirrors the user behavior inside the platform. So we talked about how we can evaluate video creative. Obviously, it's 3 key metrics: thumbs up, the hold rate, and the average view duration. But let's actually dive into some of the most common mistakes that I see across the funnel and across all those key metrics, both from a video but also from a kind of static perspective as well. And most of those can apply again to both static and video. And just turn it off with click rate here. The most common thing is that I'm seeing overused kind of boring hooks. So for example, more generic intros like the best skin product for glowing skin. Again, these are like very like boring statements that the user can actually skip those, and they are quite a handful of like brands doing basically the same thing. So the kind of point of action here is to be more specific and to have a kind of statement that really is going to capture the attention of our customer that we actually want to attract, but also is quite engaging, and they're actually going to be stopping the scroll and watching through the ads. For example, a stronger alternative might be 90% of people actually ruining the skin with this one habit. Are you one of them? And then there's much more inclination from the user itself to find to actually watch through the whole ad and see what's that exactly one habit, and then obviously we can pepper in our product inside the video to position it as the solution. The other common mistake here is underwhelming visuals. Again, most of videos, or even most of like statics, they are very boring, and is not enough visual or auditory elements that can actually stop the scroll basically. The other thing here is the visuals. Most ads across Meta and TikTok, and that's one of the most common mistakes our brands do is they actually try to make ads. They're actually not trying to make native content or actually appear as native, which is a big mistake here because it kind of dilutes the fact that we don't have people in the other side of the screen and that obviously are accustomed to engaging to a very certain type of kind of content. So the kind of visuals are very boring. They're not really tailored to these kind of platforms. So we need to use engaging enough visual hooks like close-up shots, bold text overlays. Again, those statements that we just talked about, and those elements that obviously are going to help us attract the right kind of attention here. On to the next thing is CTAs. I think those are also being very, very repetitive in a sense. Like most of the kind of videos that we see here is just a kind of plain learn more call to action, which again is not engaging enough. We need to ask a kind of question that is going to be thought provoking or helping the user to kind of direct to the website here. So some much stronger call to action examples can be, for example, say goodbye to breakouts. So now only 10 left, grab yours before they actually sell out. So using that exclusivity, but also this narrative that we need to take action now before that specific offer is actually off the website. So just to summarize everything, the kind of tips to boost click-through rate is to test multiple hooks, multiple call to actions, and really split test across creative elements like swap up different visuals you see. Even if click-through rate is basically a metric that gauges how many people actually click through, it has a very, very close connection to the hook itself and how we are positioning the specific video creative. Now, going into the thumbs up ratio. Now, some of the stuff is going to be the same. Like we need to have a very engaging hook, start with a movement, both visuals, or like a question, or maybe like a double hook. So basically, two questions that are going to help retain that customer. But also, obviously, stop using generic first lines. We need to lead with that disruption or pain point. So we need to capture the right kind of attention. And again, here, how you fix low thumbs up ratio is very similar to how you obviously yield a higher click-through rate, because again, like we kind of just said, they are very interconnected here. So make sure you use quick jump cuts, very, very bold colors, pattern interrupts, and any kind of sound effect that can cause the user to stop here. Now into the more hard metrics here and like how you can optimize around ROAS, CPA. You might see most of your ads, while they have this in spend, they're not really uh, producing the efficient CAC or the efficient CPA that we want to obviously be profitable, scale more spend, and really grow the business. That's going to be the main key focus of yours. And we went through the creative metrics, which again are going to be very helpful on identifying all those bottlenecks that we can tweak and kind of test against to yield a higher ROAS or higher kind of efficiency here. But the first thing that you need to think when looking at your creative and you see, for example, if your creatives are not really hitting the ground running and are not really producing the CPA or the ROAS that we want, is to really just think beyond um like those specific creative metrics, but also on a more top level, what's really the messaging that is really move the needle, and don't over stress about over optimizing every unique metric. So the most common elements that are producing that low ROAS is, first of all, messaging. We're not really talking to our customer and addressing the kind of core desire or core pain point. So you need to go back to the drawing board and go back and come up with 3 to 5 core angles, 3 to 5 core personas, and build your research document again. So you need to address those specific messaging types there. So after we have nailed down the messaging, you probably went down to the kind of fundamentals here. You need to also see like from an overall like marketing perspective and overall customer journey perspective, where you are inside your business. You might don't have enough scale in the business, so you might be needing to just focus on the problem and solution aware segments, which are the warmest out there. So for example, leading with angles like problem solution, pain point, benefit, really showcasing how you're different with any other brand out there, basically. And again, that goes hand in hand with the persona that we just talked about, like really focus on speaking to the right kind of audiences. You might be actually speaking to the kind of wrong audiences with the right messaging. So for example, if it is like a value buyer, you maybe have a product that is much more suited into like saving money. You need to obviously emphasize those savings. If it is a premium buyer, you need to lean into how they make them feel, how it's actually perceived by other people inside the kind of social circle, how exclusive it is, how qualitative it is. And these are like all things I need to nail down. And that goes again hand in hand with the actual creator that you're going to be using. Make sure you're using creator that is going to be your ideal customer, so people actually can resonate. And the last piece is around your value proposition and week offer. So from an e-com perspective, the most important thing will be your product, hands down, and then the creative, and then all the other stuff. But we can marry this together and showcase in our ads the clear value prop. Like you need to showcase why people should actually buy this product, lead with the benefit, not the feature. For example, like hydrating serum with vitamin C, or like dull dry skin, get a dewy glow in 7 days. Really showcase the kind of after effect and the benefit, and speak through the noise that quite a few different brands are basically going to be saying similar things. So we need to marry that with a specific offer. Again, you might not be running a very specific offer, but I think you can highlight, for example, the scarcity that you may have limited stock of, that you may be having free shipping, or some limited time deals, or maybe even some more seasonal messaging here based on the marketing calendar. Again, these are all very effective in terms of like being more efficient, getting more profit from the first kind of purchase, and really driving the needle inside your business. And then I have other kind of situations and fixes. These are like a lot more granular and like an if this then that scenario. So I'm not gonna bore you guiding through all those. Feel free to go through them yourself. I'm gonna link it below. But yeah, that was pretty much it. This is how you can basically read your data inside the Ads Manager, read the right kind of data, which is very important, and optimize your business and your art creative, really to reflect who you want to speak to and optimize the right kind of metrics really to drive more profit and revenue. So thanks for watching this, and I hope you really found this valuable.